This situation out here on 125th Street is one where we believe Koreans and Arabs and whites and every other person but white folks are free to move in and earn money any way they feel like earning. And not only can they earn that money out there, they are free to take it out of the neighborhood and out of the community without paying 1 ounce of tax, without making one contribution to its social institution, without hiring any significant number, if any, of its members, without supporting any of its cultural and other institutions and establishments. They are free to come in and earn the wealth and suck that wealth right out. Because they are what? Americans, just like we are. And we live in a multicultural society. And they have as much right as we do to be on the street. That's why we have it. But nations don't operate that way. Nations do not see alien groups as having as much right to take advantage of their wealth as they do themselves. Nations don't see aliens and alien nations as having more right to carry the wealth out of the nation than the nation has itself to benefit from its wealth. No one believes, no nations believe that. They're truly of themselves. The struggle you have now going on between the only way the United States pushed free markets, which it talked about so much, is because the United States at that time was one that had most of the money and most of the wealth. And therefore, by convincing other people to believe in free markets, by convincing other people that they should not protect their markets, that they should not protect their property, that they should not protect their land, that they should not protect their wealth, that they should leave their wealth exposed to United States investment. The United States, because of the wealth advantage it had, preached free markets, not because it believed in democracy, because it believed in individual freedom and so forth. We know better, but because when it got people to believe in that ideology, those people would open their markets to this country, and the United States capitalists could enter into their markets and come to and own every valuable piece of property and wealth that belonged to that nation, and could suck that wealth out of that nation and leave its people impoverished, even though they felt righteous, because, they believed in free market. You have not seen any nation on this earth consume itself into power, gain power by what? Spending only. You will never see a nation that is a nation of consumers ever be a free nation and a powerful nation in this world. You will only see nations who've made it in this world economically, that are nations that are what? Productive, and have control over the means of production, which means property, resources, both human and non-human resources, and materials. There is no way you're going to exercise real power in this nation and in this world if you believe that your wealth and possibilities can be freely given without any kind of stipulation to any other group of people. I don't care how righteous it sounds. It's not going to happen. And yet we have that kind of ideology out here. And that is the reason we suffer the way we do. We have the ideology of individualism. Each of us doing his own thing. Yes, the building of these stores, the occupying of these stores by other groups is done by a coordinated system of activity. It's done on the basis of institutions and group behavior, not just mere individuals pursuing their own self-interest, but of individuals who have coalesced and combined their resources so that this could happen. We are in the condition we are in, and the situation is the way it is out there, because our consciousness is a reactionary consciousness. It is more concerned with defending our injured ego than with advancing our interests. It is a consumerist consciousness that is absorbed by consumption and buying and eating more than it is with producing. It sees the end of life as continuous consumption. It sees the very meaning of life as contained in consuming and buying, not in owning and controlling. We don't care who sells us just as long as we can buy. Just as long as you get out of the way and let me get to the white man and give him my money. We only concerned with how we can consume, not how we can produce. And because we have that as our central concern, we are under the control of other people. Our values are values such that we value being smiled at by Koreans more than owning the businesses that they have and feeding our children through their partners. We value their superficial friendship more than we value transferring the wealth that we have in our pockets to our children and creating jobs for ourselves and for our families. We value being accepted by whites, which we'll never get, more than we value self-acceptance. We value jobs and working for white folks and value being identified and gaining our status based on the white plantation we work on than the one we own and control ourselves. When you have then a people caught up with the ideology of free market, individualism, consumerism, the desire to be accepted and loved by their masters, a desire to work for rather than to employ and create employment, you have the kind of situation you have right out there on 25th Street, on all of the 125th streets across America, on all of the 125th streets across the Caribbean, across the whole African diaspora, including Mother Africa itself. Yeah. If you go to Kenya, you'll see the African vendors on the outside, on the sidewalk, and the East Indians and Arabs on the inside, in the shops. If you go to Ivory Coast, you'll see the French people in the boutiques and on the inside, and the African West on the outside. You go to Caribbean, you go to any place here, you see the same kind of game. Why? Because we are imbued with the same kind of false values and the same kind of false beliefs and the same kind of false orientation toward consumption rather than ownership. We believe that our community should be free markets when no other community permits such a market to occur within themselves. As I've told you before, the reason why we're in the condition we're in is because we look at ourselves as a nation. We see that we've let the Korean nations and the other nations invade our internal markets, take the money and the wealth out of those internal markets back to their own neighborhoods and communities and nations. On top of that, we have seen that they block us from access to their markets, and therefore we are in a double bind. We are blocked from access to the markets of aliens because they do not let people freely walk into those markets, and we are blocked from access to our own internal markets, and therefore we must operate in the cracks between the two. And those groups then make it illegal for such an operation to occur, and therefore the black economy ceases to exist. And this is based on our belief, not even on their orientation, but our belief. Because if we didn't believe in these free markets, we would not support these people without spending. And they are only here because we spend money with them here, and we keep them here. And we spend money with them because we have false ideologies and false beliefs as a people. We have then to examine ourselves. Let's look more closely at what is going on. And this is the peril. And this is the peril of so-called third for a nation, an African nation, who have been inculcated with Eurocentric values, values that they think are righteous, values that they think are good. They fail to ask good for whom and good for what. They are just told they are good. You see, it's good not to spend your money relative to somebody's race. It's bad to look at a person's race and make a decision as to whether you're going to spend or not spend. Oh, that's right, so I want to be good and I want to be righteous. It's good just to open your market and let anybody come into the market and take advantage of the market who wants to come in. So we want to be good, and therefore we cannot get access to our own markets. Other people grow wealthy. Other people then create a trade imbalance. They take our wealth and stack it up in their own nations, and they use that stacked up wealth that they've gotten from our communities and our nation as the basis for their power in the world, and it's the means by which they will dominate us and control our circumstances. They will take the power that they gain from owning our property and owning our wealth to maintain us independency, since we are the propertyless, and we must earn our very subsistence based on the rules and regulations generated by those who own property. And it's property that we have given to them and permitted them to have. You cannot run a nation if its wealth is being suctioned off. I talked to you earlier about the opium wars, of how China, how the British got a taste for tea, but China was the only place that was growing the tea. The British didn't have anything the Chinese wanted. It's interesting, you see how taste controls the world. And when you let other people create your taste, they also create handles and means by which they're going to manipulate you. The whole of the empire of drug addiction and drug dealing is based on what? Taste and desire. And the manipulation of people's taste and desire. The British are addicted to tea. They became addicted to tea. I've told you before, it was their addiction to sugar that's to a great extent the reason why blacks were sprinkled throughout the Caribbean and the Americas. To feed the British sweet tooth, we were made to cut the cane and to make molasses and rum. So you can't take taste lightly, you see, because it is man's desires and tastes that motivates him to create a world and transform the world in a way that his tastes and desires are fulfilled. So then, that is why, again, you cannot let another people generate your desires and produce your desires and produce your taste. Because when they do, when they are in control of producing for those desires and producing for those tastes, they are going to manipulate their behavior based on the taste and desires that they have created. And this is what has happened to us as a people. We have lost our African taste. We have lost the taste for things that we can produce for ourselves. We hunger most deeply for things that are produced by other people. And the other people keep producing tastes and desires in us all the time. Through TV, through radio, through newspapers, through ads. Every conceivable means of communication is used to create the taste and produce taste in black people. Taste and desires that we think represent our own individual personality. And they make sure that the taste and desires they create are the taste and desires they alone have the means by which they can produce for them and satisfy them. Yes. And this is what happened when the British became addicted to the tea. You see, the Chinese had the tea, and the Chinese then were in a position relative to the British added. He put conditions on their getting the tea. He said, what? You want this tea? You got to pay in silver and gold. And the British silver and gold just flowed right out of England by the ton. And it flowed out so much that it began to threaten the stability of the English government